nice today. I got no.
At this time, I'd like to call to order the Historic Preservation Commission meeting of April 28th, 2026. It is 6 p.m. To start, we're going to go around the room, and I'll ask all the members to please introduce themselves, speaking into the microphone.
Mark Hammis.
Joy Pickanew.
I'm Elizabeth Jones. I'm the chair.
Jane Camp.
Chuck Bradley.
All right, next, we'll allow the city staff to please introduce themselves.
Alexis Robinson, Historic Preservation Planner.
Brad Callender, Planning and Zoning Director.
Laura Powell, City Clerk.
Thank you so much. Okay, next, we're going to look at the approval of the agenda. And I'm going to ask, has everybody had the chance to review the agenda for today's meeting? Okay, can you acknowledge so in the microphone?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Next, we're going to have the approval of the minutes, and I'm going to ask the same thing. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of March 24th, 2026?
Yes.
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any changes or corrections to the minutes of March 24th, 2026?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, motion carried. So next, we're going to go on to old business. Actually, no, I need to go back. We had two motions, but I didn't ask for a vote, so let me back it up a minute. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Old business, we have it looks like we have a certificate of appropriateness for 122 through 126 South Broad Street to replace facades, windows, and door. Alexis, do you have a presentation for us prior to calling the candidate up to discuss it?
Yeah. So this is staff report for 122, 124, and 126 South Broad Street. So today, normally when I show y'all staff reports, I show y'all our I show y'all pictures of what the properties look like currently, and then I show you like what's going to be done. Today, I'm showing you, these are pictures from, as you can see, 2023. So what I'm going to show you in the next couple slides are pictures that are the work that has already been done. So the next pictures are going to be current, but this is the work that is like, this is the buildings pre-work, and then this is what's already been done to the buildings now. So this is what the buildings currently look like. Does that make sense?
Right, we're seeking approval for this.
Yes,
After-
retroactively.
retroactively.
Okay, I just wanted to explain that before we start talking about it. So, yeah. So, the applicant is looking for, to replace the facades of 122, 124, 126 with hardy board and replace 124's windows and doors as well as 126 windows. So, the 122, 124, and 126 all replaced with hardy board. As you can see here, there's a lot of rotted wood examples, and that's why I replaced with hardy board. And you can see where the wood has been replaced here with hardy, where this is 126, where all of it's been removed, and then it's been replaced later.
She's going to finish her presentation, then she'll give you a chance to give your. You'll have an opportunity to do a presentation in just a second. So, sorry.
And then the 126 windows were also replaced, as you can see here. And then they were replaced to look exactly like they were in the 2023 version windows, except they are single pane, not double pane. But the 124 windows were replaced 4 inches shorter. They are double hung, similar to the 2023 version, so the only difference is in size. And again, the wood has been replaced with hardy here. And you can see the door has been replaced here too as well. But now the door looks black has been painted, and it has a mail slot on it. So this is what the current condition of the building looks like right now. So staff's recommendations. Oh, wait, before I get to that, let's talk about the primer. So all of these go with the primer, what we're talking about. The building deterioration. So with the rotted wood, in 6.3, we talk about the building being stabilized and is important to maintain the property against ongoing and potential property damage by replacing rotted wood. That's where that applies. The commercial facade preservation is important in rehabilitation to preserve commercial elements of the building. In the storefront, the upper floor, the details and distinguished each style to be retained. Intact commercial facades and storefronts should be rehabilitated using existing materials. So some of that has been replaced. However, a lot of this has been replaced in the past. So a lot of the building had already not retained its original fabric to begin with, which is why replacing it with hardy or replacing windows, because 124 windows were already vinyl, they were not historic wood windows or historic windows in the first place, was not retaining the original historic fabric of this. But, we're maintaining the character of the commercial fabric of this building would be where 7.1 applies for this. And then for 7.1F, again, maintaining original windows and aluminum doors and windows are often necessary for security reasons. Again, talking about replacing is okay, which it has been. And then for the zoning ordinance I've added, which is new, going away from the primer, I want to talk about proportionality. So this is where the 4 inches comes in with the windows. So with the replacing of the 4 windows or the 3 windows on 124 that are 4 inches shorter than the original windows from 2023. Here. They are shorter than they were before. You can kind of tell here. Do you see how it's like off by 4 inches? It kind of goes to that proportionality of like they're not parallel to the windows on 122 and 126 anymore, like they were in 2023. And then we'll go, that leads me to staff recommendations. Staff recommends approval of the COA with the recommendation of replacing the 124 windows to be parallel with 122 and 126 South Broad Street like they were in 2023. And instead of being double hung windows like they currently are, to be single pane windows. And the third condition with the door, that was when the door was white, but they have made the door look more commercial. The door looked residential at this point, and it should not be residential. It should look like this, like a law office door with a commercial slot, with a mail slot. So it has been resolved, so the commission does not need to look at this third condition. So just conditions 1 and conditions 2 is what staff recommends for approval for COA. And that is the end of my staff report.
Okay, all right, well then we will ask the gentleman here to come forward and present his thoughts. Introduce yourself and present your thoughts to the members up here.
My name is Steve Noel. I've owned this building since 1981. I bought it. It looked like a sea had gone through inside. The floors were all uneven. It had tremendous water damage. And then we set about to slowly rebuild the building. And we tried to do it right. However, now, over 35 years later, the plywood on the outside had degraded to the point that it was very rough. And when we started taking it off, it had degraded almost totally. So I had a choice, go back with something that had already failed or go back with something better. So I decided to go back with the Hardy board. Now, with regard to 122, which I don't see any complaints about 122, but 122 has basically been put back as the way we did it when we made the changes back in 89 to 91. One of the things we did back then was that building used to be a Western Auto. You know, I don't know if you all are old enough, but some of you are, I'm sure. And it had the raising, you know, and it had the indented windows and so on, all of which had been taken out in the meantime. When I took over the building, it had a flat facade, and we put back that facade. We did the same on the 126. Both of those had larger windows, and those windows were much larger than the ones that were that have ever been on 124 since I've owned it, okay? And if you go back and look at 122 and 126, you can see the windows are much larger. And the reason 126 was originally double pane was I was trying to, again, do it right, but when we took them out this time, the one pane broke. And we were trying to keep as much original as we could, but we were able to put back a single pane and couldn't go back with the double pane. So now, there was one other change on 126 that wasn't brought up, but I thought it actually made it a little bit better, and that is, if you look at the front now on 126, could you go back and bring up 126, the front of it, please?
That's the one.
That's 120, yeah, that is 126. If you look at 122, you'll notice that the roof is lower on 122.
Oh, that's not
There's about a 2.5-foot thing over the central area that is no longer on 126. which is our next project, is to fix the back. So I would ask you to allow me to keep the windows that we replaced it with. We've done over $25,000 worth of work, and then we had to get going on it for two reasons. One, your city marshal was kind enough to give me a summons to get my buns into court, and that's because I wasn't taking care of my building for 4 or 5 months. I hadn't been in town. I've had some health issues, and I just didn't want to come. But I did start coming, and we got this work done, and candidly, I think it looks pretty good. I think we've added some diversity, and I think we've gotten several compliments from people walking by appreciating what we've done. You know, and even we kept the side windows to the door, which we had to do a little finagling with, but we managed to do that. Do you have any questions for me about what we've done or what we were trying to accomplish?
I tell you what, I'm gonna read something real quick, and then I'm going to let everybody think about this for a second, and then they will ask questions as they come to them, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I appreciate you, though. I appreciate your sharing your thoughts. I want to say that about the Hardy Board, in the past, and I have this written up here, in the past, federal guidance focused on repairing buildings with the original materials whenever possible, while avoiding replacement with modern materials. But a September 2023 update to the National Park Service, the NPS, they have a Preservation Brief 16, the use of substitute materials on historic building exteriors. And that shows a shift toward a more flexible approach to preservation, allowing new replacement materials and an expanded set of circumstances as so long as they maintain the building's historic integrity. So that gives the Hardy Siding an important role to play in supporting the efforts of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which aims to preserve the aesthetic character of historic buildings that remain rooted in our history. I do think you can consider the windows in this aspect too, because as long as they maintain the building's historic integrity, you know, I think you can allow some flexibility. So I just want each of you to think about that for a minute. And the things to consider from the Hardy Board brief, Preservation Brief 16, on the use of substitute materials on historic building exteriors, I think two main things to consider would be the performance of the material over time and economic feasibility. And like this gentleman has said, he did go through some hardship medically, and he had some trials there. So I do think we need to look at economic feasibility and say, well, he spent a bit of money, so we need to look at that too. But now I'm going to turn that over to the panel, and if y'all have any questions, go ahead and ask away.
Well, I hate that the whole thing about 124, the out of alignment. I was not ever able to understand what you were describing.
Can I ask you to speak into the microphone so we have it for the record?
I'm so bad. Sorry. I was not able to understand what you were describing.
Oh.
For the location of the out of alignment of the windows.
Oh, okay. So I think I have a better picture with the 2023 one. Okay. So you can kind of see. So it's just because the size of this is just a longer window. That is the only difference.
You said 4 inches? Is that?
It's a 4-inch longer window. So do you see, this is the bottom of 126's window. Do you see this? That is the bottom of 126's window. So there's a 4-inch difference between here and here.
Okay.
So that's the only staff recommendation is change, like the other, just to make it a longer window would be the only staff recommendation for that. That was all I was saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you said that it was out of proportion.
Yeah. I meant symmetrical, like the parallel. You know, I want them, staff recommends for them all to be parallel, because if you looked at 126, 124, and 122 in a line from the street, all the windows would be parallel to each other. Does that make sense? Maybe I said the word wrong. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I think you're doing well. Like I said, I think if you include the fact now that we've added a 4-inch piece of trim on the bottom, that they match up a whole lot better now than what you did when you took that picture. See,
Oh, okay. So you've added trim since then?
Yes, ma'am.
This
You
is
see
what it
that
looks
big
like
black
currently.
trim that goes all the way across there?
Yes, yes, I do see that, yes.
And then that's the window on the left.
Yes, so this is
That's
the window, this
126
is
right there.
126, and this is 124's window. So it's a little bit different, but the trim has added a little bit of a little bit, but it still is not quite, but it's added some. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's what, that's pretty much what I thought the first time, last month. But then when you said it this time, I thought it was, I missed it.
Sorry, my bad.
No, it's fine. Thank you, that tells me.
Does anybody else have a question?
Were the windows that were replaced, were they all single pane?
No, ma'am, they were,
Or were they double?
double pane.
Okay,
What we were hoping to do originally was to go inside and add the shutters on the inside for several reasons that never happened. But it's like what she said. Things change over time. We've replaced plywood on the outside of that building at least 3 times. I mean, we just couldn't keep it. I've never been able to buy a paint that would stick to the original plywood that we had. I mean, I've gone through different types. I had Sherwin-Williams paint fail after 12 months. And I have to tell you, that was 35 years ago, and I've never bought a gallon since. I had another person that used Sherwin-Williams when he repainted it. He came back the next year and repainted it again because it failed again. But we've repainted this building since I've owned it at least 4 times, and I know I've replaced the plywood, especially under the windows, at least 3 times. And so that's going back with the Hardy board this time seemed to make sense. And plus, the city code enforcement officer, the marshal, told he wanted to have a flat and uniform appearance on the outside. And I just don't think you can do that with plywood anymore. But perhaps I'm wrong.
Does anybody have any more questions? Any thoughts? Are y'all ready? Let's see. Well, I would ask if there was anybody out here that had any questions, but we don't have anybody here today. So I'm going to ask if you guys have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the project as presented to us today.
Do I have a second?
I second.
You need to clarify if you want to approve it with those conditions or not, because those conditions do require change. Because conditions 1 and 2, as presented, require him to make changes to those
Okay.
windows.
How do you want to approve it? Do you want to approve it as he's already installed it, or do you want to approve it as with the changes that are requested?
He's already installed.
So approve with no conditions would be the motion. Approve with conditions.
I would like to approve with no conditions.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Thank you for coming in. It's approved as it is, to my understanding.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I will tell you, I do plan to add a light on the outside of my building like I had before. I just haven't bought that yet, and I didn't want to do too much more until you all approved it. But that's about the only other change I'll be making to the front.
My recommendation for the future is if this happens again, you come see us prior to doing the work, but
Well-
thank you for coming now.
I had the city marshal telling me that
I
I was
understand.
going to jail if I didn't do things.
I understand completely. I understand. Well,
All right, you all
we
take care.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, next we will have our adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. This concludes the HPC meeting of April 28th, 2026. We are adjourned.